All right, everyone. Today we are continuing Unit 2, Colonial America. And now we are going to focus on some of the thinkers and ideas that helped shape the foundations of the United States. This lesson is all about the Enlightenment. Now, before we begin, I want you to think about this question. Where do rights come from? Do governments give people rights? Or are rights something people naturally possess simply because they are human? That question became one of the most important debates in world history. And during the 1600s and 1700s, a movement known as the Enlightenment completely changed the way many people thought about government, freedom, religion, and human rights. The Enlightenment was a philosophical movement in Europe during the 1600s and 1700s that emphasized reason, science, logic, education, and natural rights. Instead of blindly accepting the authority of kings or governments, Enlightenment thinkers encouraged people to question authority and think critically. Many of these thinkers believed that human beings were born with natural rights, sometimes called unalienable rights. Unalienable rights are rights people naturally possess at birth and that cannot simply be taken away by government. These ideas later became deeply connected to the American Revolution and the founding of the United States. In fact, one of the most famous lines in American history comes directly from Enlightenment thinking. In the Declaration of Independence, Thomas Jefferson wrote that people are endowed with certain unalienable rights, including life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Now let's talk about some of the most important Enlightenment thinkers connected to colonial America. First, we have John Locke. John Locke was one of the most influential Enlightenment thinkers in history. Locke was an English philosopher and writer who believed that people naturally possessed rights that governments were supposed to protect. Now, this idea was revolutionary at the time. For centuries, many European monarchs claimed they ruled by divine right, meaning they believed God had personally chosen kings to rule, and that questioning the king was almost like questioning God. Locke challenged that idea completely. He argued that government existed because people agreed to create it. This idea became known as the social contract. According to Locke, citizens agree to obey laws and governments in exchange for protection of their rights. But Locke also believed something incredibly important. If a government fails to protect the rights of the people have the right to change or even overthrow that government. That idea later became one of the major justifications for the American Revolution. Locke also argued that government power should not be unlimited. He believed government should have separated powers. Locke divided government mainly into legislative and executive powers. The legislative branch makes laws. The executive branch carries out and enforces laws. Later thinkers would expand these ideas even further. Locke strongly believed in natural rights, including life, liberty, and property. You may notice something interesting there. In the Declaration of Independence, Jefferson changed Locke's phrase from property to the pursuit of happiness. But the influence of Locke's ideas is still very clear. Now let's move to Charles de Montesquieu. Montesquieu was a French nobleman, writer, and Enlightenment thinker. He expanded heavily on Locke's ideas about government structure. Montesquieu believed that concentrating too much power in one person or one branch of government was dangerous. He argued that government powers should be separated into different branches so no single group could become too powerful. Montesquieu developed the idea of three branches of government: legislative, executive, and judicial. The legislative branch makes laws. The executive branch carries out laws. The judicial branch interprets laws and settles disputes. This idea later became one of the foundations of the United States Constitution. Montesquieu also strongly believed that education was extremely important for society. He believed educated citizens were necessary for good government and freedom. Now let's discuss William Blackstone. William Blackstone was an English judge, legal scholar, and professor. He became famous for writing commentaries on the laws of England, one of the most influential legal texts in the English-speaking world. Before the American Revolution, Blackstone's writings were considered one of the greatest explanations of English common law. Common law refers to laws developed through court decisions and traditions over time, rather than laws created only through written codes. Blackstone strongly supported the idea of natural rights. He believed people naturally possessed rights, such as life and liberty. He also strongly supported religious tolerance and the right of self-defense. Many of his legal ideas later influenced American law and constitutional thinking. Now, Blackstone also wrote about women's legal status during marriage. At the time, English law largely treated married women as legally connected to their husbands under a system called coverture. Blackstone famously wrote, "By marriage, the husband and the wife are one person in the law." This reflected the legal limitations women faced during this time period. Now let's move to Thomas Hooker. You may remember Hooker from our lesson on the New England colonies. Hooker was a Puritan minister and one of the founders of Connecticut, but he was also an important political thinker. Hooker believed government should operate with the consent of the governed. In other words, government gets its authority from the people. He also believed people had the right to limit government power. Hooker supported democratic ideas, including elections and representative government. In 1638, Hooker gave a sermon that strongly influenced the creation of the Fundamental Orders of Connecticut. The Fundamental Orders are often considered the first written constitution in America. Now finally, let's talk about William Penn. William Penn was the founder of Pennsylvania and a member of the Quakers. Penn believed strongly in religious freedom and tolerance. At a time when many governments forced people to follow official state religions, Penn argued that people should be free to worship according to their own beliefs. Penn also believed people should have a voice in government. In Pennsylvania, he helped establish an elected legislature where colonists could participate in political decisions. Penn's colony became known for diversity, religious tolerance, and representative government. Now, when we look at all these Enlightenment thinkers together, we begin seeing several major themes appear again and again. Natural rights, government by consent; religious freedom, representative government; separation of powers, limits on government authority. These ideas slowly spread throughout the American colonies and deeply influenced colonial leaders. Eventually, these Enlightenment ideas helped shape the Declaration of Independence, the United States Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and many of the democratic principles Americans still debate and discuss today. The Enlightenment helped change the way people viewed government itself. Instead of asking, "How powerful should the king be?" people increasingly began asking, "How can government protect the rights and freedoms of the people?" That question became one of the foundations of the United States.